A bullet costs 2 cents, Eldridge Sample said. The bay horse didn't answer. It just kept walking, its hooves making a soft, rhythmic crunch-crunch in the dry alkali dust of the trail. The animal's head was low, ears flicking back to catch the sound of the man's voice. But it knew better than to interrupt a conversation Eldridge was having with himself. 2 cents, Eldridge repeated. He shifted his weight in the saddle, the leather creaking in the cold night air. That's for a 44-40. Government load. You buy them in a box of 50 for $1. If you know the clerk. He reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a single cartridge. He held it up to the starlight. The brass was cold, the lead nose dull and heavy. And a man, Eldridge said to the horse. What's a man cost? Lately, I'd say about a nickel. Maybe less, if he's drunk. He dropped the cartridge back into his pocket. It clicked against the others. The night was vast. It wasn't just dark. It was an ocean of black emptiness that stretched from the Red River to the Rio Grande, swallowing towns and ranches and solitary riders without even burping. The sky was a crushed velvet lid clamped down tight, pinned in place by a million cold, indifferent stars. Eldridge rode with his collar turned up. The wind had a bite to it, a dry, sawing edge that found the gaps in his canvas coat. He smelled sagebrush and dust, and the faint, lingering scent of gun oil from the Colt shoved into his belt hatcher's Colt. He wasn't going anywhere in particular. He was just putting distance between himself and the last town, the last dead body, the last thank you that didn't pay the rent. Used to be, Eldridge said, you had to work to get killed. You had to cheat at cards, you had to steal a horse, you had to insult a man's mother. Now you just have to stand in the wrong shadow. The bay stumbled on a loose rock. Eldridge checked the reins. Gentle. Watch your feet, he said. I don't want to walk. He looked at the landscape. It was a boneyard of mesquite and shadows. The scrub oak looked like twisted iron in the gloom. Civilization, Eldridge muttered. That's what they call it. They put up a telegraph wire and a saloon and call it progress. But the wire just carries bad news faster, and the saloon just gives men a place to be loud before they die. He took a sip from his canteen. The water was warm, tasting of tin. He thought about the price of things. He thought about the rancher in Arizona who died for water. He thought about the shopkeeper in Texas who died for pride. Inflation, Eldridge said. The price of living goes up, but the price of dying stays flat. He rode for another hour. The silence of the plains was heavy, pressing against his eardrums. It was the kind of silence that made a man talk just to prove he still existed. Then he saw it, low on the eastern horizon. A light at first. He thought it was a fire, a homestead burning, or a campfire built too high by a greenhorn who wanted the Comanches to find him. But it didn't flicker. It didn't jump. It was steady, white, piercing. Star, Eldridge said. It was too big to be a star. It hung there, suspended just above the silhouette of the hills, burning with a cold, intense brilliance that made the other stars look like dying embers. Venus, Eldridge guessed. Or Jupiter, or maybe the moon broke into pieces. He stared at it. It annoyed him. It was too bright. It drew the eye. It demanded attention in a landscape where attention usually got you shot. Look at that thing, Eldridge said to the bay. Showing off. The horse lifted its head. It saw the light too. It pricked its ears forward. Don't get ideas, Eldridge said. It's just gas, or rocks reflecting the sun. It doesn't mean anything. He tried to look away. He tried to focus on the trail ahead, the dark ribbon of nothing leading to nowhere. But his eyes kept drifting back to the right. To the light. It sat there, unblinking. It looked like an eye. It looked like it was watching him. Quit staring, Eldridge growled. He pulled his hat brim lower. He slumped in the saddle. He rode for another 10 minutes. The star didn't move. It seemed to hang over a specific spot in the distance, pinning a location to the map. What do you want, Eldridge asked. You want me to ride over there? You want me to see what's under the spotlight? The star didn't answer. It just burned. Eldridge sighed. It was a long, ragged sound of a man who was tired of his own curiosity. If I go over there, Eldridge told the horse, it's going to be trouble. It's always trouble. It'll be a broken wagon, or a dead cow, or a man with a broken leg who wants me to carry him 40 miles to a doctor who's drunk. The bay chewed on the bit. I should just keep riding, Eldridge said. I should ride until I hit the ocean. There aren't any stars in the ocean, just water. He stopped the horse. He sat in the dark, the wind pulling at his coat. He looked at the empty trail ahead. He looked at the bright star to the east. He felt the itch. The same itch that had made him walk into the alley in solitude. The same itch that had made him climb the rim in the caprock. It wasn't conscience. Conscience was a luxury for men who slept in beds. It was boredom. Or maybe it was just the habit of turning over rocks to see what crawled out. Fine, Eldridge said. He knee-craned the bay. We'll look, he said. We'll ride over there. We'll see it's nothing. and then we'll keep going. 10 minutes. That's it. The horse turned willingly. It seemed interested in the light too. Or maybe it just sensed that the rider had finally picked a direction. They left the trail. They cut across the scrub, the bay picking its way through the cholla. The star got brighter. It hung low, a beacon. It's a trap, Eldridge muttered. Nature's trap. Like a lure on a fishing line. Shiny thing in the dark. He loosened the Springfield in the scabbard. He checked the Colt, just in case the star had friends with rifles. He rode toward the light, a solitary figure moving through the brush. Arguing with his horse and his luck, following a beacon he didn't trust, toward a trouble he didn't need. The star watched him come. He didn't blink. He just waited, cold and white and silent, hanging over the roof of a mud-chinked cabin that Eldridge couldn't see yet. 2 cents, Eldridge said again. That's all it's worth. He kicked the horse into a trot. He wanted to get this over with. He wanted to see the nothingness and get back to the drift. But the star pulled him on, a white hole in the night, promising something that Eldridge Sample had stopped believing in a long time ago. The star didn't lead to a manger. It led to a shack that looked like it was trying to crawl back into the mud it was made of. Eldridge Sample reined the bay horse in at the edge of the clearing. The light he had followed, the bright white hole in the sky, seemed to hang directly over the chimney, a celestial pointer marking a spot that God had otherwise forgotten. He sat in the saddle, listening. The wind hissed through a patch of dead cornstalks that rustled like dry bones. A windmill, its blades locked with a piece of rope, creaked rhythmically against the metal brake. Scree-thud, scree-thud. Not a palace, Eldridge said to the horse, and not a barn, just a box. The cabin was built of cottonwood logs, crooked and scarred, chinked with red clay that was cracking in the heat and washing away in the rain. The roof was sod, sprouting weeds that had died weeks ago. A lean-to sagged against the west wall, sheltering a buckboard with a broken wheel. There was a light inside. It leaked through the gaps in the chinking and spilled out from under the door. A thin, yellow line of kerosene warmth in the blue dark. Eldridge checked the yard. It was swept clean, the dirt hard-packed. A rocking chair sat on the porch, empty, moving slightly in the breeze. A washboard leaned against a post. Someone's home, Eldridge said, and they're awake. He loosened the thong on his Colt. He didn't draw it. Riding up to a squatter's shack in the dark with a gun in your hand was a good way to get shot by a nervous homesteader. Riding up without one was a good way to get shot by a nervous outlaw. He nudged the bay forward. The horse stepped high, picking its way through a scattering of tin cans. Hello, the house, Eldridge called out. His voice was a gravel slide in the silence. It didn't echo. The open space swallowed it. The silence from the cabin. The yellow line under the door didn't change. Eldridge waited. He kept his hands in plain sight, resting on the saddle horn. I'm just a rider, Eldridge called. Looking for water? I don't want trouble. A latch clicked. The sound was sharp, metal on wood. The door swung inward. It didn't open all the way. It opened a foot. A slice of lamplight cut across the porch, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. A barrel poked out. It was a shotgunned up. The bores looked like train tunnels. Thomas? A voice asked. It was a woman's voice. High, tight, strained with something that sounded like pain or panic. Or maybe both. No, ma'am, Eldridge said. He didn't move his hands. Name's Sample. The shotgun didn't lower. It tracked him. The woman stepped out onto the porch. She was small, framed by the light from the doorway. She wore a calico dress that was faded to gray, patched at the elbows. Her hair was loose, stringy, falling around her face. And she was big. Her belly pushed the fabric of the dress out, a hard, round mound that looked ready to drop. She leaned back to counterbalance the weight, her feet wide apart. She looked like she was carrying a watermelon under her clothes. She stared at him. She looked at the bay horse. She looked at the shadow of the man in the saddle. You ain't Thomas, she said. I told you that, Eldridge said. Thomas, your husband? He's coming back, she said. She shifted the shotgun. It was heavy for her. The muzzle dipped, pointing at the bay's knees, then jerked back up. He's just, he's late. I didn't see anyone on the trail, Eldridge said. Just rocks. He went to Cross Creek, she said, to the bank. She took a step forward. The floorboards groaned. She peered into the dark, looking past Eldridge, looking for a second rider. Looking for the shape of a husband that wasn't there. He promised? She whispered. Eldridge looked at her hands. They were white-knuckled on the stock of the gun. Her fingers were thin, red from work. She was shaking. Put the gun down, ma'am, Eldridge said gently. That trigger looks light. I'd hate for you to shoot my horse. He's the only transportation I got. She blinked. She looked at the gun like she had forgotten she was holding it. I thought you were him, she said. I heard the hooves. I thought, double quotes. She lowered the barrels. The hammers were pulled back. Twin ears of iron cocked and ready. Ease the hammers down, Eldridge said. Thumb on the spur, pull the trigger. Let it ride forward slow. She did it. Click, click, click. She leaned the gun against the doorframe. She put a hand on her belly. She grimaced, a sudden spasm of pain crossing her face. She grabbed the post, her knees buckling. Eldridge swung down. He hit the ground and moved to the porch steps. You all right? It's just ... a kick, she gasped. He's kicking. He feels like he wants out, Eldridge said. He's early, she said. She straightened up, breathing hard through her nose. Or Thomas is late. They were supposed to ... meet. She looked at Eldridge. Really looked at him? She saw the dust on his coat. She saw the hard lines of his face, the scar on his jaw. She saw the Colt in his belt. She didn't look scared of him. She looked past him. You didn't see him? She asked again. On a roan mare? Wearing a brown coat? No, ma'am. The trail was empty all the way to the horizon. Her face fell. It didn't just sag. It crumbled. The hope that had held her upright, the adrenaline that had let her lift the heavy gun, it all drained out of her into the porch planks. She sat down in the rocking chair. It squeaked. He's not coming, she said. Maybe he got held up, Eldridge said. Horse through a shoe. Or he stopped for a drink. Thomas, don't drink, she said. Not when he's got the money, not when he's got the mortgage in his pocket. She looked at the empty road. The star hung above them, bright and mocking. He went to pay it off. She said, $500? Every cent we had? Saved for 3 years. Sold the mules. Sold the plow. To the bank. To Mr. Finch, she said. The banker. He said ... He said if we didn't pay by the 1st, he'd take the land. He'd take the house. She rubbed her belly. Thomas rode out this morning, she said. At dawn. It's a 4-hour ride. He should have been back by noon. He said he'd bring ice. For the baby. Eldridge looked at the woman. She was young, maybe 20. Her face was gaunt, the cheekbones sharp. She looked like she had been fighting a war against the dirt and the wind for too long. You're alone here? Eldridge asked. Just me? She said. And the baby. She looked at him. The disappointment in her eyes was a physical weight. It was heavier than the shotgun. It was heavier than the child. It was the crushing realization that the cavalry wasn't coming. Just a drifter on a tired horse, following a light that didn't mean anything. I thought the star brought him, she whispered. I saw it. I made a wish. Stars don't grant wishes, Eldridge said. They just burn. He's hurt, she said. Or he's dead. He wouldn't leave me. Not now. Not with the money. Eldridge stepped up onto the porch. He took off his hat. I'm sorry, ma'am, he said. I'm not him. I know, she said. She didn't look at him. She stared at the darkness where the road used to be. You're just ... another man. She closed her eyes. A tear leaked out, cutting a track through the dust on her cheek. He has the money, she said again. $500. In a leather pouch, he pinned it to the inside of his coat so he wouldn't lose it. Eldridge felt the cold settle in his stomach. A man alone. A wad of cash. A town called Cross Creek. It was a story he had heard 100 times, and it never ended with ice cream. I'm going to Cross Creek, Eldridge said. She opened her eyes. Yar? My horse needs grain, he lied. And I need a drink. Will you ... Will you look? She asked. Will you see if his horse is there? At the rack? I'll look. Tell him ... She stopped. She gripped the arms of the chair. Tell him to hurry. Tell him to water broke an hour ago. Eldridge looked at the puddle on the floorboards under the chair. He hadn't noticed it before. You're in labor, Eldridge said. It started, she said. Slow, but it's coming. You can't stay here alone. I ain't got a choice. Mister, unless you know how to birth a baby, I know how to deliver a calf, Eldridge said. Same principle, different noise. She laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that turned into a grimace as another contraction hit her. She doubled over, holding her breath. Eldridge waited. He watched the spasm pass. She sat back, panting. Go, she said. Find him, please. I'll find him, Eldridge promised. He didn't say he'd find him alive. He didn't say he'd find the money. He just said he'd find him. What's your name? Eldridge asked. Sarah, she said. Sarah Miller? All right, Sarah. You got food? Water? I got water, she said. And I got cold bacon and biscuits. From this morning, she looked at him. She saw the way he eyed the door. She saw the hunger he hadn't mentioned. You eat, she said. Take a plate. Then go. I can eat in the saddle. Sit, she ordered. A man rides better on a full stomach. And I don't want to be alone. Just for a minute. Eldridge looked at the bay horse. It could wait 5 minutes. He sat on the top step of the porch. He put his hat on his knee. Sarah struggled out of the chair. She went inside. She came back with a tin plate. 2 biscuits, hard as rocks. 3 strips of bacon, congealed in white grease. She handed it to him. It ain't much, she said. It's plenty, Eldridge said. He ate. He didn't taste it. He watched the road. He watched the star. It was higher now, brighter. It looked like an eye that refused to blink. Sarah sat back in the rocker. She watched the dark. She rubbed her belly. He's coming, she whispered. He asked to come. Eldridge finished the biscuit. He stood up. He set the plate on the railing. I'll find him, Eldridge said again. He walked to the horse. He mounted up. He looked back at the woman on the porch. She looked small, frail, a candle flame in a hurricane. Keep the shotgun close, Eldridge said. I will, and keep the light on. I always do. Eldridge turned the bay. He rode out of the yard, heading for the town of Cross Creek. He wasn't following a star anymore. He was following a bad feeling. A feeling that smelled of robbery and a dead man in a ditch. He touched the Colt in his belt. $500, Eldridge said to the night. That's a lot of motive. He kicked the horse into a trot, leaving the pregnant woman and the disappointment behind. Riding toward the trouble that was waiting in the dark. Cross Creek wasn't a town. It was a scar in the mud where the wagon trail met a dry riverbed. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse down the center of the only street. The mud was deep, churned into a black paste by iron rims and hoofbeats. It smelled of standing water and horse manure that hadn't dried in weeks. The buildings were raw lumber, unpainted, leaning into the wind like they were trying to keep from falling over. A general store. A bank with a false front that looked like a bad stage set. A saloon called the Trough that lived up to its name. It was midnight. The town should have been asleep, but towns like this didn't sleep. They just passed out. Light spilled from the saloon windows, yellow and smoky. A piano was playing a tune that sounded like a bag of cats hitting a wall. Eldridge pulled his hat low. He scanned the hitching rails. The rails were crowded. He saw a roan. It was tied in front of the saloon. It stood hip-shot, head down, looking miserable. It wore a worn saddle with a broken stirrup leather tied with rawhide. There you are, Eldridge whispered. He rode past it. He didn't stop. You don't stop at the front door when you're looking for trouble. You circle the perimeter. He turned the bay into the alley that ran between the bank and the saloon. The alley was dark, smelling of wet garbage and urine. Shadows pooled against the walls, deep and inviting. Eldridge drew the Colt. He rested it on his thigh. He moved the horse slow. The hooves made a sucking sound in the muck. He saw a shape. It wasn't a garbage pile. It was a man. He was lying face down in the mud behind the saloon's back door. He wasn't moving. A crate of empty bottles was stacked next to him, and a stray dog was sniffing at his boots. Get! Eldridge hissed at the dog. The dog snarled and slunk away. Eldridge dismounted. He stepped into the slop. He walked to the body. The man was wearing a brown coat, stained dark with mud and something else. He had lost his hat. His hair was matted with blood. Eldridge knelt. He rolled the man over. It was Thomas Core. It was a man who fit the description of a husband who hadn't come home. Young, sunburned face, now pale and bruised. One eye was swollen shut, the size of a plum. His lip was split. He was breathing, shallow, wet rasps that bubbled in his throat. Thomas, Eldridge said. The man groaned. He tried to lift a hand to defend himself, but the arm just flopped back into the mud. Easy, Eldridge said. I'm not hitting you. Thomas opened his good eye. It rolled wild, trying to focus in the gloom. The money. Thomas wheezed. Gone? Tuck it, Thomas gasped. He coughed, spitting red. 500 olivets. Eldridge checked the man's coat. The inside pocket was ripped open. The lining hung loose. Who took it? Eldridge asked. Masked, Thomas whispered. Masked man? Jumped me. By the bank? By the bank? Eldridge looked at the back door of the saloon. Then how did you get here? Dragged me, Thomas said. Dumped me, with the trash. Eldridge looked at the alley floor. He saw the drag marks, 2 furrowed lines where heels had scraped through the mud, leading from the side of the bank building to the rear of the saloon. He wanted you hidden, Eldridge said. So you wouldn't scream? My land? Thomas sobbed. Sarah, the baby, Sarah sent me, Eldridge said. She's waiting. The baby is waiting. I failed, Thomas said. He closed his eye. Tears leaked out, mixing with the blood. I lost it. I lost everything. You lost the cash, Eldridge said. You're still breathing. It counts for something. Eldridge stood up. He looked at the bank building. It was dark, closed tight. He looked at the saloon. The noise inside was loud. Laughter, shouting. Did you see the horse? Eldridge asked. The man who jumped you, was he riding? No, Thomas said. On foot. Came out of the shadows. Hit me with, iron. A pipe or a gun? Big man, small? Eldridge looked at the drag marks again. A masked man. On foot, waiting by the bank. It felt staged. It felt like someone knew Thomas was coming. Knew he had cash. Can you stand? Eldridge asked. I don't think so. You have to, Eldridge said. I can't carry you and catch a thief at the same time. He reached down, he grabbed Thomas by the lapels of his ruined coat. He hauled him up. Thomas screamed. A short, sharp sound. His legs wobbled. Lean against the wall, Eldridge ordered. He shoved Thomas against the rough wood of the saloon. Stay upright. You fall, you drown, in this mud. I'm going to look, Eldridge said. He walked to the back door of the saloon. He peered through a crack in the wood. The room was hazy with smoke. Men were drinking at the bar. A poker game was running at a round table near the front. Eldridge scanned the faces. He was looking for a big man. A man who looked like he had just come into money. He saw him at a table in the corner, alone. A man in a duster. He had a bottle of whiskey in front of him, the good stuff. With a label, he was counting money. Not coins, bills, greenbacks. He wasn't wearing a mask. But he had a red mark on his knuckles. Fresh scraped skin. Slade. Eldridge guessed. It was a name that fit a face like vet hard, angular, with eyes like two pieces of flint. Slade shoved the money into his pocket. He took a drink. He looked happy. He looked like a man who had just paid off a debt or bought a future. Eldridge stepped back from the door. He looked at Thomas. You stay here? Eldridge said. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Where are you going? I'm going to ask a man about a withdrawal. Eldridge walked around to the front of the saloon. He stepped onto the boardwalk. He scraped the worst of the mud off his boots. He pushed the batwing doors open. The noise hit him. The smell of beer and sweat. He walked in. He didn't look at the bar. He didn't look at the girls. He walked straight to the corner table. Slade looked up. He saw the stranger standing over him. He saw the way Eldridge's coat was swept back behind the grip of the Colt. Help you, Slade asked. His voice was gravel. You dropped something? Eldridge said. What? Your manners, Eldridge said. And $500. Slade's hand drifted toward his belt. Don't, Eldridge said. The saloon went quiet. The piano stopped. Men sensed the change in the air pressure. I don't know you, Slade said. You know Thomas? Eldridge said. The man you beat in the alley? The man whose money is in your pocket? Slade smiled. It was a wolf's smile. Prove it, Slade said. The mud on your boots matches the mud on his coat, Eldridge said. And your knuckles are bleeding. Slade stood up. He kicked his chair back. You're making a mistake, friend, Slade said. I'm the deputy. He flashed a badge inside his duster. A tin star. Sheriff Boggs hired me this morning. Eldridge looked at the badge. He looked at the money bulging in the pocket. The law in this town, Eldridge said, seems to have a heavy tax. We collect what's due. Slade went for his gun. Eldridge didn't shoot. He stepped in. He grabbed the bottle of whiskey from the table. He swung it. The heavy glass connected with the side of Slade's head. The bottle didn't break. It made a dull, solid thud. Slade's eyes crossed. His knees folded. He went down, crashing through the table, taking the money and the wood with him. Eldridge stood over him. He pointed the Colt at the bartender. Nobody moves, Eldridge said. He reached down. He grabbed Slade by the collar. He dragged him across the floor, through the sawdust and the spilt liquor. Where are you going? The bartender yelled. To the bank, Eldridge said. To make a deposit. He dragged the unconscious deputy out the door, into the mud, heading for the alley where the broken husband was waiting. The mud in the alley was colder than the mud in the street. It smelled of things that had been rotting a long time. Eldridge Sample dragged the unconscious deputy by his collar. Slade's heels furrowed to deep lines in the muck, passing the crates and the garbage. Until they reached the spot where Thomas was propped against the wall, Thomas was still there. He hadn't slid down. He was holding himself up with a kind of desperate rigidity, his good eye fixed on the darkness. Eldridge dropped Slade. The deputy hit the ground with a wet splat, his head lolling to the side. Is that him? Eldridge asked. Thomas squinted. He looked at the duster. He looked at the boots. The coat, Thomas whispered. It smells like ... wet wool and horses. That's him. Eldridge knelt. He went through Slade's pockets. He pulled out the wad of cash. Greenbacks. Crumpled, sweaty, but there. He counted it. $500. Your mortgage, Eldridge said. He tucked the money into his own coat pocket. We'll count it proper later. He looked at Slade. The man was out cold. A lump on his temple the size of a walnut, swelling purple against the skin. Wake up, Eldridge said. He didn't slap him. He took a handful of the alley muck coal, slimy slush and smeared it over Slade's face. He rubbed it into the eyes and the nose. Slade sputtered. He choked, thrashing his arms, coughing up mud. His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. He tried to sit up. Eldridge put a boot on his chest and pushed him back down. Stay, Eldridge said. Slade blinked, wiping the slime from his eyes. He saw the Colt in Eldridge's hand. He saw the brick wall. He saw the man he had beaten an hour ago. You, ... Slade groaned. You hit me with a bottle. It was handy, Eldridge said. You're wearing a badge, Slade. A tin star? You tell me how a deputy ends up rolling a farmer in an alley for $500. I found him, Slade lied. His voice was thick. He was drunk. I was helping him. You helped his money right into your pocket. I was securing evidence. Eldridge leaned down. He pressed the muzzle of the Colt into Slade's cheek. Don't lawyer me, Slade. You aren't smart enough. You knew he had the cash. You knew exactly when he walked out of that bank. I didn't know nothing. Thomas says you jumped him right after he left the door. That's good timing. Too good for a drunk deputy in a saloon. Slade clamped his mouth shut. He stared up at Eldridge with hateful, piggy eyes. You had a spotter, Eldridge said. I work alone. Nobody works alone in a town like this. It's too small. You step on a cat here. A dog barks on the other side of Main Street. Eldridge cocked the hammer. Click. Who told you? Slade sweated. The mud on his face ran in streaks. Sheriff Boggs, he'll have your hide. Assaulting an officer. Boggs is asleep, Eldridge said. And you're bleeding? I'm going to ask you one more time. How did you know? Slade looked at the gun. He looked at Thomas. The blind, Slade whispered. What? The window blind. At the bank, Slade licked his lips. Finch, the banker, if a mark comes in, if he withdraws big money, Finch pulls the blind down halfway. That's the signal. Eldridge straightened up. He looked at the bank building at the end of the alley. It was dark now. Silent. The banker? Eldridge said. Mr. Finch. He spots him. You'll rob them? He takes 20%. Slade spat. Greedy little weasel. Just sits in his cage and counts money while I do the heavy lifting. And the sheriff. Slade hesitated. Boggs ... He takes 34, looking the other way. 50% overhead, Eldridge said. Criminal enterprise has high taxes. He slid down the wall a few inches, his legs giving out. The banker ... Thomas wheezed. He ... He smiled at me. He shook my hand. He was shaking your wallet, Eldridge said. He looked at Slade. Get up. My head spins. Get up or get dragged. Slade scrambled to his feet. He swayed, holding his head. Eldridge spun him around. He used the piggin strings from Thomas's pocket now. He didn't have strings. He used Slade's own belt. He whipped it off and tied Slade's hands behind his back. Thomas, Eldridge said. Can you walk? I have to, Thomas said. Good man. Eldridge grabbed Slade by the shoulder. He shoved him toward the street. Where are we going? Slade asked. House call, Eldridge said. Mr. Finch is working late. They walked out of the alley. The street was still loud, the silver dollar roaring, but the north end of town, where the respectable people lived, was quiet. Eldridge led them toward a white clapboard house that sat behind the bank. It had a picket fence and a rose bush that looked like it was dying of thirst. A lamp was burning in the parlor window. That's it, Slade said sullenly. That's his whole... Eldridge pushed Slade through the gate. He waited for Thomas to limp up. They stepped onto the porch. Eldridge didn't knock. He didn't check the windows. He raised his boot and kicked the door. The lock shattered. The door flew open, banging against the interior wall. Eldridge stepped inside, dragging Slade with him. Mr. Finch was sitting in a wingback chair, wearing a velvet smoking jacket and reading a newspaper. He was a small man, with a face that tapered to a point, like a rodent sniffing for cheese. He jumped up, dropping the paper. His eyes went wide. What is the meaning of this? Finch squeaked. This is private property. Eldridge threw Slade onto the rug. The deputy landed in a heap, groaning. Your partner has a complaint about his cut, Eldridge said. Finch looked at Slade. He looked at Thomas, who was standing in the doorway, bloody and bruised, looking like a revenant. Finch's face went white. He backed up against the fireplace. I don't know these men, Finch stammered. I'm a banker. We know what you are, Eldridge said. He walked over to the desk in the corner. He saw a ledger open. He saw a stack of Thomas's cash. No, Eldridge had that. This was other money. He pulled the blind, Eldridge said. The sun. It was in my eyes. It was noon, Eldridge said. The sun was overhead. He pulled the wad of bills from his pocket. He tossed it onto the desk. $500, Eldridge said. Count it. Finch stared at the money. He couldn't help himself. His fingers twitched. It's all there, Finch asked. Every dollar. You gave it to Thomas this morning. Then you sent your dog to take it back. I did no such thing. This is slander. I'll call the sheriff. We're going to see the sheriff, Eldridge said. But first, we're going to fix the paperwork. He pulled the Colt. He pointed it at the inkwell on the desk. The mortgage, Eldridge said. Tommany's note. Find it. I.e., the bank is closed. The files are locked. Eldridge thumbed the hammer. Open the bank. Or I open you. Finch swallowed. He looked at the gun. He looked at Slade, who was bleeding on his Persian rug. He looked at Thomas. The keys, Finch whispered. They're in my pocket. Get 'em. Finch fished a ring of keys from his smoking jacket. Let's go, Eldridge said. We're going to open the vault. And you're going to stamp that paper. He grabbed Finch by the arm. He hauled him toward the door. Get up, Slade, Eldridge said. You're coming too. We need a witness. They marched out of the house. A parade of the guilty and the broken. heading back to the bank to balance a ledger that had been crooked for a long time. Eldridge looked at Thomas. "You hold up," Eldridge said. "We get the paper. Then we get the sheriff. Then we go home." "Home," Thomas whispered. "Sarah. She's waiting," Eldridge said. "And she's got a shotgun. Let's not disappoint her." The key rattled in the lock of the bank door like a skeleton trying to get out of a closet. Mr. Finch's hands were shaking so bad he dropped the ring. Twice before Eldridge Sample reached over, took the brass key, and turned the tumbler himself. "Open it," Eldridge said. Finch pushed the door. It swung inward on wheel-oiled hinges, revealing a lobby that smelled of ink, paper money, and the lingering scent of floor wax. Eldridge shoved Slade inside. The deputy stumbled, tripping over his own feet, and fell onto the polished floorboards. He stayed there, groaning, his hands still tied behind his back with his belt. Thomas limped in. He looked around the bank like he was entering a cathedral, but his eyes were on the heavy iron door of the vault behind the teller cages. "Light the lamp," Eldridge ordered Finch. Finch hurried to the clerk's desk. He struck a match, the sulfur flare harsh in the gloom. He lit a green-shaded kerosene lamp. The light threw long, jumping shadows against the walls. "The vault," Eldridge said. It's on a timer," Finch lied. He was sweating, his velvet smoking jacket looking ridiculous in the setting. "It's a Mosseler," Eldridge said. "Model 7. It doesn't have a timer. It has a dial. Spin it." Finch swallowed. He walked to the cage door, unlocked it, and went behind the counter. He knelt by the safe. Spin, click, spin, click. The handle turned. The heavy door swung open. "Get the file," Eldridge said. "Thomas Miller. Mortgage." Finch rummaged inside. He pulled out a thick folder. He brought it to the counter. He opened it. The deed was there, thick bond paper with a wax seal, and the promissory note. $500, Eldridge said. "Due on the 1st. "Yes," Finch whispered. Eldridge reached into his pocket. He pulled out the wad of cash he had taken from Slade. He threw it on the counter. "Counted," Eldridge said. Again, Finch counted. His fingers were quick, practiced. "It's all here. 500. "Stamp it," Eldridge said. Finch grabbed the rubber stamp from the rack. He inked it. He hovered over the note. "Do it!" Thump. The red letters appeared on the paper. "Paid in full." Eldridge picked up the note. He checked the ink. He handed it to Thomas. "Put that in your pocket, Thomas." Thomas took the paper. He stared at the red letters. He folded it carefully, his hands trembling, and tucked it into his shirt, next to his skin. "Thank you," Thomas said. His voice was a ghost. "We aren't done," Eldridge said. He looked at Finch. "Where's the sheriff's cut?" Eldridge asked. I don't know what you mean," Slade said. 30%? That's $150. Is it in the safe, or did you already deliver it?" Finch looked at the open vault. "I haven't seen the sheriff tonight. He's at the jail, playing solitaire." "So the money is in the bank?" "Yes, in the cash drawer." "Leave it," Eldridge said. "We're going to pay him a visit." "I can't," Finch said. "I can't be seen with you, Boggs. He's a violent man." "So am I," Eldridge said. "Get up, Slade!" He hauled the deputy to his feet. They walked out of the bank. Eldridge locked the door behind them. He handed the key to Finch. "Lead the way," Eldridge said. "To the jail." They walked down the center of the street. The silver dollar was still roaring, oblivious to the drama playing out in the mud. Eldridge holstered his Colt. "Get the doctor," Eldridge said to Finch. "What?" "The doctor," Eldridge said. "Dr. Evans? Get him. Bring him to the livery stable. Tell him to bring his bag." "For the sheriff?" "For the woman," Eldridge said. "The sheriff is past help. The woman is having a baby." Finch stared at him. You want me to get the doctor?" "Go," Eldridge said. "Run. If you aren't back in 10 minutes, I come looking for you." Finch ran. He scrambled out the door, stepping over Thomas in the street, fleeing into the night. Eldridge looked at Slade. "You staying?" Eldridge asked. Slade looked at the dead sheriff. He looked at Eldridge. He nodded. "Mute." "Good," Eldridge said. "He's your carrying the groceries." He walked to the door. "Thomas," he called. "Come in. It's safe." He looked at the badge still pinned to the dead man's chest. "He had an accident," Eldridge said, leaning his gun. Eldridge grabbed a set of keys from the wall. He unlocked Slade's cuffs. "Grab a sack," Eldridge ordered Slade. "Fill it with coffee, sugar, beans, from the supply closet." Slade hurried to obey. Eldridge looked at Thomas. "We got the paper," Eldridge said. "We got the doctor coming. Now we go get the baby." "Let's go home," Thomas said. The silence in the jailhouse was heavy. Eldridge Sample stood by the open door. He watched the streets. The silver dollar was still churning out noise, a mix of piano wire and drunken laughter that seemed miles away from the dead man sitting behind the desk. "He's taking too long," Eldridge said. Thomas looked up from the bench where he was slumped. He was holding a rag to his face. "Finch! Finch!" Eldridge said. "He's a banker. Bankers don't run. They calculate. He's halfway to the doctor's house, and he's thinking about the odds. He seems scared, Thomas said. Fear wears off, Eldridge said. Greed doesn't. He looked at Slade. The deputy was sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, guarding a sack of coffee beans like it was the crown jewels. He looked pathetic, but his eyes were tracking Eldridge's movements. Slade Eldridge said, "Yeah, where does the doctor live?" 2 streets over, Slade said. White House, with a green porch. Can't miss it. He's got a sign. Is he a drinking man? He drinks enough, Slade said. But he's usually sober by midnight, unless it's a Tuesday. It's Tuesday, Eldridge said. He checked the Colt. He holstered it. I'm going to get him, Eldridge said. Thomas, take the shotgun. Thomas stared at him. Me? If Slade moves, Eldridge said, shoot him in the leg. If anyone else comes through that door, shoot him in the chest. Thomas stood up. He wobbled, but he took the shotgun from the desk. He held it awkwardly, the barrels dipping. I never shot a man, Thomas whispered. Tonight's a good night to start, Eldridge said. Watch the door. Eldridge stepped out. He moved fast. He didn't stick to the shadows this time. He owned the street now. He had the badge, you know. The badge was gone. He had the gun. And he had the momentum. He turned the corner. The noise of the saloon faded. The houses here were dark, respectable. He saw the White House with the green porch. There was a light in the window. He didn't see Finch. Eldridge walked up the path. The gate squeaked. He stepped onto the porch. He heard voices inside, arguing, I can't go out there. Finch, I have patience. A deep, booming voice. You have a bottle of laudanum and a hangover. Finch's voice, high and desperate. You have to come. He'll kill me. Who the sheriff? Boggs can wait until morning. Not Boggs, the drifter. Who he shot Boggs. Silence. Then the sound of a drawer opening. The rattle of things being shoved into a bag. He shot the sheriff. The doctor asked. His voice was different now. Soap it. Dead, Finch squeaked. In the chair. Now let's go. He gave me 10 minutes. I'm not going out there with the maniac loose, the doctor said. I'm locking the door. You can't. He'll come here. Eldridge didn't wait. He kicked the door. It flew open.
Dr. Evans was standing by a cabinet holding a leather medical bag. He was a big man with mutton chop whiskers and a face that looked like a road map of broken veins. He wore a nightshirt tucked into trousers, held up by suspenders. Finch was standing by the door, wringing his hands. He jumped when the wood hit the wall. Time's up, Eldridge said. He stepped into the parlor. It smelled of pipe tobacco and camphor. Dr. Evans looked at Eldridge. He looked at the dust on the coat. He looked at the gun. You, the one? Evans asked. He didn't look terrified. He looked curious. I'm the one, Eldridge said. Grab your bag. I was just telling Mr. Finch here, Evans said, that my practice is strictly in town. I don't do house calls in the scrub. Not at this hour. You do this one, Eldridge said. Or what? You'll shoot me. Evans scoffed. Then who delivers the baby? I don't have to shoot you, Eldridge said. I just have to burn your house down. Evans paused. He looked at the lamp burning on the table. He looked at Eldridge's eyes. You do it, Evans said. I'm in a hurry. Evans sighed, hid. Picked up his hat from the rack. He jammed it on his head. Finch, Evans said. Carry the bag. My back hurts. Finch. Grab the heavy leather bag. Yes, doctor, let's go, Eldridge said. They walked out. Eldridge herded them down the street. Finch scurried like a rat. Evans walked with a heavy, rolling gait, muttering about fees and bandits. You got a horse, doctor? Eldridge asked. In the stable, Evans said. A mare, she's slow. She'll do. Saddle her. They reached the livery. The boy was asleep on a bale of hay. Eldridge kicked the bale. Wake up, Eldridge said. We need horses. The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes. You again. We paid for the night. Change of plans, Eldridge said. Saddle the doctor's mare. Saddle the banker's horse. And get my bay ready. Finch. Don't have a horse here, the boy said. Then saddle the grey, Eldridge said, pointing to a horse in the corner stall. Whose is that? That's the sheriff's horse, the boy said. He won't be needing it, Eldridge said. Give it to Finch. The boy moved. He sensed the urgency. Eldridge watched the street while they worked. The town was still asleep to the change in management. The music played on. 10 minutes later, they were mounted. Finch looked ridiculous on the sheriff's big gray, his knees knocking against the saddle swells. Evans looked bored. Eldridge sat the bay, the Winchester back in the scabbard. To the jail, Eldridge said. They rode to the brick building. Eldridge dismounted. He went inside. Thomas was sitting where he had left him, the shotgun across his lap. He looked pale, but he was awake. They're here, Eldridge said. He looked at Slade. The deputy was asleep against the wall, the sack of groceries clutched in his arms. Get up, Slade, Eldridge said. You're driving. Slade woke up. Who? He looked at the sheriff's body. He looked at Eldridge. Driving what? The buckboard, Eldridge said. Outside belongs to the county. He hauled Thomas to his feet. Can you ride? Eldridge asked. I can try, Thomas said. No, Eldridge decided. You're bleeding. You ride in the wagon. With the supplies, they moved out.
It was a strange procession. Slade drove the buckboard, his hands tied loosely to the reins, Thomas lying in the bed on a pile of blankets. Finch and the doctor rode behind. Eldridge took the rear guard. They passed the Silver Dollar. A drunk stumbled out, saw the wagon, saw the sheriff's horse ridden by the banker, and rubbed his eyes. He decided he had seen enough for one night and went back inside. They hit the edge of town. The mud turned to dust. The lights of Cross Creek faded. Eldridge looked up. The star was still there, bright, unblinking, hanging over the east. Follow the light, Eldridge said. What light? Evans asked, shifting in his saddle. The one that leads to the work, Eldridge said. He kicked the bay into a trot. The wagon rattled. The horses snorted. They were a caravan of the guilty, the wounded, and the reluctant, heading into the dark to bring a life into the world, paid for with blood and stolen money. The buckboard hit a rut that felt like a crater. The springs groaned, a metal shriek in the quiet night, and the wagon box slammed down hard. Watch the road, Eldridge Sample said from the saddle of the bay horse. I can't see the road, Slade muttered, sawing on the reins. It's darker than a coal mine out here, and these mules pull like they got rocks in their hooves. They're tired, Eldridge said. So are you. Keep driving. The procession moved slow. They were 3 miles out of Cross Creek. Suspended in the black void between the town lights and the distant, unblinking star that marked the homestead, Eldridge rode point. He kept the Winchester across his lap, not because he expected trouble, the trouble was currently driving the wagon, or riding behind it, but because the desert didn't even care if you were done fighting. Behind the wagon, Mr. Finch bounced in the saddle of the sheriff's big gray gelding. He rode like a sack of loose laundry, his knees gripping the swells, his velvet smoking jacket dusted with alkali. My back? Finch went. This animal, ... he has a gait, like a pile driver. He's a law enforcement horse, Dr. Evans said. The doctor was riding his own mare, looking bored and slightly green around the gills as the whiskey wore off. He's used to carrying a heavier load of sin than you, Finch. I didn't do anything, Finch said. I just ... facilitated. You facilitated a man into a coma, Evans said. He nodded toward the wagon bed where Thomas lay wrapped in blankets. And you nearly got me shot. I saved you, Finch sniffed. I brought help. You brought a gunman, Evans said, looking at Eldridge's back. There's a difference. Eldridge ignored them. He listened to the breathing of the husband in the wagon. Thomas was quiet. Too quiet. Eldridge dropped back. He rode alongside the wagon bed. Thomas, he said. Thomas opened his good eye. It glittered in the starlight. I am ... here. How's the head? Feels like it's split open. Thomas touched the pocket of his shirt. The paper rustled. The receipt. Is it real? The stamp? It's real, Eldridge said. Ink and rubber. Legal Boggs ... Boggs is retired, Eldridge said. Don't worry about him. Worry about Sarah. She's scared, Thomas whispered. She holds that shotgun like it's the only friend she has. Tonight, Eldridge said. She's got plenty of friends. Whether she wants them or not. He looked at Slade. The deputy was hunched over the lines. Sullen, his hands were tied loosely, enough to drive but not enough to fight. He stared at the mule's ears. You doing okay, Slade? Eldridge asked. My head hurts, Slade said. You hit me with a bottle. It was a bottle of rye, Eldridge said. Consider it a drink on the house. I'm going to press charges, Slade muttered. Kidnapping. Assault. Who are you going to tell? Eldridge asked. The sheriff? Slade shut his mouth. He snapped the reins. The mules picked up the pace. They topped a rise. The cabin was there, a mile ahead. The light was still burning, a yellow square of kerosene warmth against the black scrub. She kept it lit, Eldridge said. That's a lot of oil, Finch commented. Wasteful. It's a beacon. Mr. Finch, you wouldn't understand. You only light lamps to count money. They rode down the slope. The sound of the wagon wheels carried in the still air clack-rattle. She'll hear us, Thomas said, trying to sit up. She'll shoot. She'll think she'll thinks. She thinks it's wolves. I'll go first, Eldridge said. He spurred the bay. He rode ahead of the wagon, closing the distance. He stopped at the edge of the yard. The rocking chair was empty. The door was closed. Sarah, Eldridge called out. It's Sample. I brought him back. Silence. Then, the latch clicked. The door opened. The shotgun barrel poked out first, gleaming dull in the lamplight. Then Sarah. She looked worse than when he left. Her face was pale, slick with sweat. She was leaning heavily against the doorframe, her other hand clutching her belly. She looked at Eldridge. She looked past him. At the wagon rolling into the yard, she saw the mules. She saw the men on horses. He's here, Eldridge said. He dismounted. He walked to the porch. Put the gun down. Sarah, we brought the town to you. She lowered the shotgun. She tried to step forward, but a contraction hit her. She gasped, doubling over, dropping the gun. It clattered on the boards. Eldridge caught her. He held her up. It's time, she wheezed. Dr. Eldridge yelled. Get your bag. The wagon pulled up. Slade hauled back on the lines. Dr. Evans slid off his mare. He grabbed his leather satchel. He moved surprisingly fast for a man his size. He walked up the steps, pushing past Eldridge. Let me see her, Evans said. His voice was all business now. The drunk was gone. The physician was present. Madam, I'm Dr. Evans. You're going to be fine. He guided her inside. Eldridge turned to the wagon. Slade, help him down, Eldridge ordered. Slade climbed into the back. He grabbed Thomas under the arms. He wasn't gentle, but he wasn't rough. He lifted the husband out. Thomas's feet hit the dirt. He stumbled. He looked at the house. He heard Sarah groan inside. Sarah, Thomas yelled. He limped toward the porch, dragging his bad leg. Go to her, Eldridge said. Thomas went inside. That left Finch and Slade. Finch was still sitting on the sheriff's horse, looking at the shack like it was a contagious disease. Get down, Finch, Eldridge said. I'll wait here. You'll wait on the porch, where I can see you. Finch dismounted. He tied the gray horse. He walked to the porch and sat in the rocking chair, pulling his velvet jacket tight around him. Slade stood by the wagon. What about me? Slade asked. You? Eldridge said. You're going to water the stock. There's a bucket by the well. The rope is good. I ain't a stable boy. Eldridge rested his hand on his Colt. You are tonight. Slade spat. He grabbed the bucket. Eldridge walked onto the porch. He stood by the door. Inside, the cabin was a flurry of activity. The doctor was shouting orders. Thomas was holding Sarah's hand, wiping her face. Eldridge looked out at the yard. The star was still there, hanging over the roof. While Eldridge said to the night, Everyone's here? He looked at Finch. The banker was staring at the broken wheel of the buckboard in the lean-to. You holding up, Mr. Finch? This is irregular, Finch whispered. Highly irregular. Life usually is, Eldridge said. He took out his tobacco. He rolled a cigarette. He lit it. He leaned against the post. He listened to the sounds of life fighting to get into the world. And he watched the two thieves who had tried to stop it hauling water and rocking in a chair. The rocking chair squeaked. Scree-thump, scree-thump. Mr. Finch sat in it, his velvet smoking jacket pulled tight around his neck, his knees drawn up. He rocked with a nervous, jerky rhythm that matched the twitch in his left eye. He looked like a man trying to outrun a thought by moving back and forth in place. This is kidnapping, Finch whispered to the porch post. Technically, we crossed a county line. That makes it ... complicated. It's a field trip, Eldridge Sample said. Eldridge was leaning against the wall of the cabin, near the door. He had rolled another cigarette, but hadn't lit it. He held it unlit in his mouth, tasting the tobacco. The wind had died down, leaving the night silent except for the rocker, the shuffle of the horses in the yard, and the occasional low moan from inside the house. Slade was sitting on the edge of the porch, his legs dangling over the side. His hands were still tied behind his back. He was staring at the bucket of water near the well, licking his lips. I'm thirsty, Slade said. You watered the horses, Eldridge said. You should have snuck a sip. Horse water? Slade spat, full of spit and hay. Better than what you were drinking in the alley. Inside the cabin, Footsteps thumped on the floorboards. Heavy, deliberate, the doctor moving. Then the lighter, frantic steps of Thomas. Water? Dr. Evans's voice boomed through the thin wood. Hot water. And towels. Don't just stand there, man. Boil something. I'm trying. Thomas stammered, the sound of a stove lid clanking, the pump handle squeaking in the kitchen. Finch stopped rocking. He looked at Eldridge. How long does this take? Finch asked. I've a bank to open at 8. The bank is closed. Mr. Finch, Eldridge said, until the examiner comes, or the coroner. Finch paled. Boggs. You really killed him? I canceled his contract. He was the sheriff. The town council appointed him. Then the town council needs to check references better. Eldridge struck a match on his boot heel. He lit the cigarette. The smoke drifted blue in the lamplight spilling from the window. You knew, Eldridge said. I didn't know he was going to rob people, Finch said quickly. I just ... I provided information. Credit checks. Solvency reports. You pulled the blind, Eldridge said. That's not a credit check. That's a target designator. Finch looked away. He watched a moth fluttering against the glass at the window, trying to get to the fire inside. It was a fee, Finch said, his voice small. A finder's fee, Boggs said. He said the territory was wild. He said people lose money all the time. If it wasn't us, it would be someone else. We were just regulating the loss. Regulating, Eldridge repeated. That's a nice word for highway robbery. Business, Finch said. It's all business. Slade laughed. It was a ugly, dry sound. Business, Slade mocked. You sat in your chair and smoked cigars while I sat in the mud waiting for a farmer to walk by. You got clean hands? Finch. I got the bruises. You got paid, Finch snapped. I got 10%, Slade said. Boggs told me 20. You told me 10. I bet you two split the rest and told me it was overhead. Finch didn't answer. He started rocking again. Scree-thump Eldridge watched them, the banker and the bandit. They were two sides of the same counterfeit coin. One did the math, the other did the violence, and they both thought they were the victim. A scream cut through the night. It came from inside. Sharp. Hi, Sarah. Thomas yelped. Doctor, do something! I'm doing it! Evans yelled back. Push! Woman. Don't just yell at me. Push! Eldridge winced. He'd heard men scream when the lead hit them. He'd heard horses scream in a fire. But this was different. This was pain with a purpose. But it sounded like dying just the same. Finch covered his ears. My God, can't they shut the window? Life's loud. Mr. Finch, Eldridge said. Get used to it. Eldridge walked to the edge of the porch. He looked up at the star. It was still there, hanging in the west now, bright and unblinking. You think it's a boy? Slade asked. Eldridge looked down at the bandit. Slade wasn't looking at the water bucket anymore. He was looking at the door, his head cocked. What do you care? Eldridge asked. Just asking, Slade said. My sister. She had a girl? Died birthing her? The sister or the girl? Both, Slade said. Bad winter. Ground was too hard to dig. We put him in a snowbank until spring. Slade looked at his boots. That's why I left, Slade said. Farming, ... It's just a long way to die, tired. So you decided to help other people get there faster, Eldridge said. I decided to get paid, Slade said. He looked at Finch. Unlike him, I know what I am. I'm a thief. He thinks he's a pillar of the community. I am a pillar, Finch said. I hold the mortgage notes. I finance the seed. You steal the harvest, Eldridge said. Another scream from inside. Longer this time, followed by a low, guttural groan. She's close, Eldridge said. How do you know? Finch asked. The screaming stopped, Eldridge said. Now she's working. He finished his cigarette. He flicked the butt into the yard. It sparked and died. He looked at the three men on the porch, the banker, the bandit, and the drifter. An unlikely jury for a birth. You got any money, Finch? Eldridge asked. You took the cash, Finch said. The 500? I mean your money. In your wallet? Finch patted his smoking jacket. I have a little $50 walking around money. Give it to me. You said you weren't robbing me. I'm not, Eldridge said. I'm collecting a fee. A consultation fee. Finch hesitated. He looked at the Colt in Eldridge's belt. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather billfold. He extracted 5 $10 bills. He handed them to Eldridge. Slade, Eldridge asked. You emptied my pockets in the alley, Slade said. Remember? Right. Eldridge folded the $50. He tucked it into his shirt pocket. Behind the badge, no, the badge was gone. Behind the tobacco pouch. What's that for? Slade asked. The baby, Eldridge said. Startup capital. That's my money, Finch protested. It's a gift, Eldridge said. From a benevolent banker who wants to help a young family get a start. It'll look good in the paper. The paper? The obituary? Eldridge said. Or the society page? Depends on how you behave when we get back to town. Finch shut his mouth. He went back to rockin'. Inside, the noise changed. A cry, not a scream. A cry, thin, wavering, like a lamb in the wind. Then another, stronger, a wail of indignity at the cold air and the rough hands. There it is, Eldridge whispered. It's out, Slade said. He sounded relieved. The door opened. Thomas stood there. He was wiping his hands on a rag. His face was pale, his eyes wide and wet. He looked like he had just run 10 miles uphill. It's a boy, Thomas said. His voice broke. A boy? He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the men on his porch. He didn't see the banker or the bandit. He just saw witnesses. He's got all his fingers, Thomas said. In toes. I counted. Is Sarah okay? Eldridge asked. She's sleeping, Thomas said. She's tired, but the doc says she's fine. Thomas leaned against the doorframe. He slid down until he was sitting on the threshold. He put his head in his hands and started to laugh. It was a quiet, shaking laugh of pure exhaustion. Eldridge looked at Finch. Well, Eldridge said. Finch stopped rocking. He stood up. He adjusted his jacket. Congratulations, Finch said stiffly. Mr. Miller. Thomas looked up. Thanks, Mr. Finch. And the mortgage? Eldridge reminded him. Yes, Finch said. He swallowed. The mortgage is... settled, paid in full. Thank you, Thomas said. He patted his shirt pocket where the stamped paper was. Thank you. Slade looked at Thomas. He spat into the dirt. Good luck with the kid, Slade said. Don't let him grow up to be a farmer. I'll let him be whatever he wants, Thomas said. Dr. Evans came to the door. He was rolling down his sleeves. He looked tired but satisfied. He had a smudge of blood on his cheek. Clean bill of health, Evans said. Mother and child, though I suggest you keep the draft off them for a few days. He looked at the group on the porch. Now, Evans said, who's got a drink? I believe I've earned it. Eldridge reached into his saddlebag, which he had dropped by the post. He pulled out the bottle of rye he had taken from the sheriff's deskino. He didn't take that. He pulled out his own canteen. Wada? Eldridge said. Best I can do. Evans scowled. A dry berth. Barbaric. He took the canteen and drank. The sun was starting to crack the horizon in the east, turning the sky a pale, bruised purple. The star was fading, swallowed by the morning light. Eldridge stood up. He stretched. Time to go, Eldridge said. Where? Finch asked. Back to town. Eldridge said. You have a bank to open, and I have a bounty to collect. He looked at Slade. Get up, deputy, Eldridge said. Your shift is over. Slade stood up. He didn't fight. The fight had gone out of him hours ago. Thomas stood up. He walked to Eldridge. He stuck out his hand. Mister, Thomas said. I don't know who you are, but... you saved us. I just gave you a ride, Eldridge said. He shook the hand. It was rough, calloused, worker's hand. If you ever come back, Thomas said, there's a place at the table. I'll remember that. Eldridge pulled the $50 from his pocket. He handed it to Thomas. For the boy, Eldridge said, buy him some boots. Thomas looked at the money. He looked at Finch. Finch looked away. Take it, Eldridge said. It's clean. Thomas took the money. Thank you. Eldridge walked to the bay horse. He mounted up. Let's ride, he said to the prisoners. They moved out. The wagon stayed. The doctor got on his mare. Finch climbed onto the gray. Eldridge tied Slade's hands to his saddle horn this time, making him walk. They left the homestead in the dawn light, the windmill creaking a slow rhythm, the cry of a new life drifting out the door to greet the hard Texas morning. The sun hit the main street of Cross Creek like a hammer, striking a cymbal, waking up the dust and the dogs before it bothered with the people. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse down the center of the rutted track. He rode easy, one hand on the reins, the other resting on his thigh near the colt. Behind him, on the end of a piggin string tied to the saddle horn, walked Slade. The bandit was stumbling. He had walked 5 miles in boots that didn't fit right. He looked like a man who had lost an argument with a mule. Mr. Finch rode the sheriff's gray gelding on Eldridge's left. He was clinging to the saddle horn, his velvet smoking jacket covered in road grit. He looked terrified. He kept glancing at the bank building as if he expected it to have run away during the night. Dr. Evans brought up the rear on his mare. He was smoking a pipe, looking bored and tired. Town's waking up, Evans said around the pipe stem. You want me to announce our arrival? Maybe blow a bugle? Quiet is better, Eldridge said. Quiet costs extra, Evans said. I usually charge $2 for a delivery, $5 if it's after midnight, $10 if I have to ride a horse to get there. Send the bill to the bank, Eldridge said. Mr. Finch is feeling generous today. Finch squeaked. I am. You are, Eldridge said. Consider it a donation to the Community Health Fund. It buys goodwill. You're going to need it. They pulled up in front of the doctor's White House with the green porch. Evans dismounted. He groaned, rubbing his lower back. He grabbed his bag from the saddle. "I'm going to sleep," Evans said. "If anyone asks, I was out delivering the Miller baby. I don't know anything about a bank robbery, a beating, or a dead sheriff." "That's a healthy attitude," Eldridge said. "It's a survival instinct," Evans said. He looked at Slade. "That one needs ice for his head, but I'm out of ice. Tell him to stick it in a horse trough." Evans walked up his path, climbed the steps, and went inside. The door closed with a solid, definitive click. Eldridge looked at Finch. "Your turn, Arthur." Eldridge said no. Finch wasn't Arthur. Arthur was the shopkeeper in the last town. Finch was just Finch. "Get down." Finch slid off the gray horse. His legs wobbled. He stood in the mud, holding the reins of the stolen horse. "What do I do with this?" Finch asked, patting the gray's neck. "It belongs to Boggs. People will ask." "Tie it to the jail rail," Eldridge said, like he wrote it in himself. "And Anishare, he's still in his chair," Eldridge said. "Waiting for the coroner." Finch swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed in his skinny neck. "They'll think I did it? They'll see me with the horse?" "Nobody thinks you did it, Finch. You don't have the nerve?" Eldridge leaned down from the saddle. "Here's the story. You opened the bank early. You stamped the mortgage because you have a heart of gold. You didn't see Boggs last night. You were home reading the paper. And the money." "What money?" Eldridge asked. "Thomas paid his debt. The book's balance. There is no missing money. There is no robbery. Just a sheriff who had an accident cleaning his gun." "An accident?" Finch repeated. He didn't look convinced. He shot in the side. Through the chair. "It was a big gun," Eldridge said. "And he was a clumsy man." Eldridge looked at the banker. He needed to make sure the fear stuck. Fear was the only glue that held a story like this together. "Listen to me," Eldridge said softly. "I'm leaving, but I have a long memory. If I hear that Thomas Miller had trouble with his title, or if I hear that you decided to tell a different story, I might get nostalgic. I might come back to visit." Finch stared at him. He saw the dust on the coat. "I understand," Finch whispered. "Good. Go open your bank. Count your money. Be a pillar of the community." Finch nodded. He dropped the reins of the gray horse. He scuttled across the street, fumbling for his keys, and disappeared inside the bank. He locked the door behind him. "He's gonna talk," Slade said from the ground. "First time he gets drunk, he's gonna spill." "He won't," Eldridge said. "He's an accessory. If he talks, he admits he was signaling robberies. He'd rather be scared than hanged." Eldridge nudged the bay. He led Slade toward the jailhouse. The town was starting to move. A swamper was sweeping the porch of the Silver Dollar. He stopped to watch them pass. He looked at Slade, tied and battered. He looked at the bay horse. He spat and went back to sweeping. In Cross Creek, minding your own business was a survival trait. They reached the jail. Eldridge dismounted. He tied the bay. He grabbed the gray horse, which Finch had left standing in the middle of the street, and tied it next to the bay. "Get up on the porch," Eldridge said to Slade. Slade trudged up the steps. "You gonna lock me in with a corpse?" "I'm going to process you," Eldridge said. He opened the door. The smell hit them. Old blood, voided bowels, and stale whiskey. The air was thick, buzzing with the first flies of the morning. Sheriff Boggs was exactly where they had left him. Sitting in his chair, slumped back, his head lolled to the side. The deck of cards was scattered on the floor. The shotgun lay where Eldridge had kicked it. "He don't look good," Slade said. "He looks dead," Eldridge said. Eldridge walked to the desk. He avoided the pool of blood spreading from under the chair. He started opening drawers. "What are you looking for?" Slade asked. "Paperwork." Eldridge rifled through a stack of wanted posters. He found one for a horse thief in Abilene. He found one for a bank robber in Tucson. He found it wanted. Jedediah Slade. Highway robbery. Assault. $200 reward. 200. Eldridge read. "You're depreciating, Slade. I thought you were worth more." "That's an old poster," Slade grunted. "I'd done worse since then." "Well, this is the one I'm cashing." Eldridge folded the poster and put it in his pocket. He found the keys on the desk. "Sell," Eldridge said. He walked Slade back to the single iron cage in the corner. He unlocked the door. "Get in." Slade stepped inside. "You leaving me here?" "With him?" He pointed at the dead sheriff. "You wanted to be a deputy?" Eldridge said. "Watch the office. I'll starve. Nobody comes in here. The coroner will come," Eldridge said. "Or the swap pair. Or someone looking to pay a fine. When they do, you tell them the truth." "The truth." "Tell them you're a wanted man. Tell them the sheriff tried to cut you out of a deal and you had a falling out. Tell them you shot him." "Me?" Slade gripped the bars. "Why the hell would I say that? That's a hanging offense." "Because," Eldridge said, "if you tell them I did it, they'll come looking for me. And if they find me, I'll have to tell them about the banker And the signal, and the racket. Slade frowned. He was trying to work the angles. If I take the credit, Slade said slowly, I hang for killing a lawman. Boggs was dirty. You might get a jury to see it as a dispute among thieves. Maybe you get prison. Maybe you get away. Eldridge shrugged. But if you pin it on a drifter who isn't here, you still go to jail for the robbery, and you lose your leverage. Leverage? You know where the bodies are buried, Slade. You know about Finch. You know about the other robberies. That's worth something to a prosecutor. Slade thought about it. He looked at the dead man in the chair. I admit to killing him. I'm a big man, Slade said. The man who dropped Boggs. Fame has a price. $200, Slade said. That's the bounty on my head. That's what the poster says. Take me with you, Slade said. Turn me in at the next county. Collect the money. Don't leave me here with the flies. Eldridge looked at him. Taking Slade was money in the pocket. Leaving him was ... poetic. But leaving him meant the story might get twisted. Finch might crack. The town might form a posse. And $200 bought a lot of beans. Turn around, Eldridge said.
What?
Turn around. I'm taking the rope off. Slade turned. Eldridge reached through the bars. He untied the belt that bound Slade's wrists. Slade rubbed his arms. We riding? We're riding? Eldridge said. I'm not leaving you here to rot. And I'm not leaving $200 on the table. He unlocked the cell door. Come on out. But if you run, I shoot your leg. If you fight, I shoot your head. I'm tired, Slade said. I ain't running. Eldridge led him back to the front of the office. He grabbed a pair of iron handcuffs from the wall peg. He snapped them onto Slade's wrists. He looked at Boggs one last time. Accident, Eldridge said to the corpse. Cleaning his gun. That's what the report will say. He picked up the sheriff's shotgun from the floor. He broke it open, ejected the shells, and tossed it onto the desk. Let's go, Eldridge said. They walked out onto the porch. The sun was fully up now, burning off the last of the morning chill. The street was busy. A wagon rolled by. The driver looked at Eldridge, looked at the prisoner, and kept going. Eldridge untied the bay. He helped Slade mount the gray horse now. Finch had left the gray. Eldridge put Slade on the gray. It was a good horse. Too good for a bandit, but it would carry him to the county seat. Eldridge mounted the bay. He looked at the bank. The shades were drawn, but the sign said open. Finch was inside, counting his money and sweating. He looked at the doctor's house. Quiet. He looked east, toward the homestead. He couldn't see it, but he knew it was there. A woman, a man, and a baby. Safe. Where are we headed? Slade asked. West, Eldridge said. Always west. There's a marshal in Fort Stockton, Slade said. He pays good for paper. Fort Stockton it is. Eldridge kicked the horse into a walk. He led the prisoner and the stolen horse down the main street of Cross Creek. He didn't look back at the jail. He didn't look back at the town. He had fixed the roof, paid the mortgage, and taken out the trash. It was time to get back to the drift. The Star had done its work. Now, it was just daylight, and the road was long. The road to Fort Stockton was 40 miles of hardpan and heat that didn't care about justice, mortgages, or babies born in the dark. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse. He kept a steady pace, the kind that 8 miles without killing the mount. Behind him, on the sheriff's gray gelding, Slade sat slumped in the saddle, his hands cuffed to the horn, his boots dangling free of the stirrups. My hands are numb, Slade said. Circulation is a privilege, Eldridge said. Not a right. He could loosen him. I ain't going nowhere. You're going to jail? Eldridge said. That's somewhere. They rode through the afternoon. The sun hammered down, bleaching the color out of the scrub brush. Eldridge pulled his hat low. He felt the weight of the wanted poster in his pocket. $200. You gave the money back? Slade said. He had been stewing on it for 10 miles. The 50 from Finch. I did. That was good money. Easy money. It was seed money, Eldridge said. For the boy, he needed boots. He's a baby. He don't walk. He will, Eldridge said. They hit the outskirts of Fort Stockton just as the sun started to drag its belly across the western horizon. It was a bigger town than Cross Creek, with a stone courthouse and a Marshal S office that looked like it had been built to last. Eldridge rode down the main street. People looked at the prisoner, then looked away. It was a common sight. He pulled up at the hitching rail in front of the marshal's office. He dismounted. Get down, Eldridge said. Slade slid off the gray. He landed awkwardly, unbalanced by the cuffs. Eldridge grabbed his arm and steered him toward the door. Inside, the office was cool. A ceiling fan turned lazily, moving the stale air around. The marshal was sitting behind a desk that was organized with military precision. He was an older man, gray-haired, with a mustache that looked like a push broom. He looked up from a ledger. Help you? The marshal asked. Eldridge pushed Slade forward. Delivery? Then Marshal looked at Slade. He looked at the bruised face, the trail dust. He stood up and walked around the desk. He peered closely at Slade. "Jedediah Slade," the marshal said. "I'll be damned. I thought you were in Mexico." "I got lost," Slade muttered. Eldridge pulled the folded poster from his pocket. He smoothed it out on the desk. 200, Eldridge said. The marshal looked at the poster. He checked the date. He checked Slade again. "That's the rate," the marshal said. He unlocked a heavy iron box on the corner of the desk. "Sign here," the marshal said, turning the ledger around. "Receipt for prisoner transfer." Eldridge picked up the pen. He dipped it. He wrote his name. Sample. "Sample?" the marshal read. "You the one who brought in the gantry boys over in Solitude?" "I was there," Eldridge said. "Heard about that? Heard the town burned down? It got hot." Eldridge scooped up the coins. He dropped them into his pocket. They clinked against each other, a heavy, satisfying sound. "What about the horse?" the marshal asked, pointing out the window at the gray. "Stolen," Eldridge said. "From the sheriff in Cross Creek. You can send word. Or keep it. Boggs won't mind. He's retired." "Retired? Permanent," Eldridge said. The marshal nodded. He didn't ask questions. He grabbed a set of keys. "Come on, Jedediah," the marshal said to Slade. "We got a cell with your name on it. And the beans are fresh." Slade looked at Eldridge. "You're a hard man, Sample," Slade said. "I'm solvent," Eldridge said. He walked out. He stood on the boardwalk for a minute. The evening air was cooling. He took out his tobacco and rolled a cigarette. He lit it, inhaling the smoke. He looked east. Somewhere back there, in the dark, a lamp was burning in a cabin window. A woman was rocking a chair. A man was holding a piece of paper, stamped paid, and a baby was sleeping in a box made of apple crates. Eldridge took a drag. He thought about the star, the bright white hole in the sky that had started it all. It wasn't a sign. It wasn't a miracle. It was just a ball of gas burning itself out in the cold vacuum of space. But it had led to a porch. And the porch had led to a payment. "Even trade," Eldridge said. He walked to the bay horse. He checked the cinch. He patted the neck. "You want oats?" he asked the horse. The bay nudged him. "All right. Oats and a beer. Then we drift." He mounted up. He turned the horse west, toward the fading light, leaving the receipt and the redemption. He wasn't a savior. He was just a man who had balanced a book, collected his fee, and kept moving before the ink could dry.